And you're welcome to Focus Africa, as well we delve into the pressing issues shaping our continent. And today we turn our attention to Kenya, where a new report by the Kenya National Commission on Human Rights has painted a disturbing picture of rising human rights violations over the past 18 months. Now, the report highlights a very harrowing increase in human rights abuses, including enforced disappearances, arbitrary arrests, and alarming numbers of femicide. Now, most shocking is the discovery of 448 bodies in Shakahola, a tragedy that continues to haunt the nation, with over 600 individuals still missing.
So the KNCHR has called for urgent government intervention to address these violations, particularly the growing trend of kidnappings and abductions. DNA identification delay and insufficient resources have compounded the agony of affected families. So today we examine these troubling findings and discuss possible solutions. To do that, joining us for this critical conversation is Chris Otieno, founder and CEO, Global Risk, Redux, and Technology Solutions Limited. Thank you very much for joining us, Chris. Good morning to you.
Good morning. Thank you for having me. How are you there?
Very good.
Thank you so much for joining us. I mean,
Thank you, sir.
a discovery of 448 bodies is alarming, and to say that 600 more are missing is also, it paints a grim reminder of the violations that seem to be happening and occurring in Kenya. What does this tragedy reveal about the state of human rights in the country?
It is tragic, like you said. It is quite tragic. Some of these numbers are harrowing, quite harrowing. And we keep wondering, everybody keeps wondering in this country, and those who read about us from across the globe, they critically ask themselves, what is happening in Kenya? We have a huge number, we have quite a high number of deaths. We have quite a number of enforced disappearances. We have quite high numbers of injuries. And we continue to record police brutality cases time and again. And you will find that every sector of our society keeps asking, what is happening, what is happening, what is happening? And the common citizens are gradually becoming unsafe from these kinds of stories that we hear from around the republic. Everybody keeps asking themselves, are we really safe? Are we really safe? And you find the long run, we all call up the president of the Republic of Kenya. What is happening? Are we really safe? How comes these things are not known by law enforcement? So are they the ones perpetrating this? So with all these statistics, it seems like we are gradually going back to those dark days of colonialism, those dark days when we don't have structures to manage security in our country, and that kind of a platform where we're just worried and very, very worried.
Chris, I saw a documentary about the extrajudicial killings in Kenya. That was sometime 2 years back. But now we're hearing of enforced disappearances and arbitrary arrests. Could you please give us a clear idea of exactly who's perpetrating these?
If you look at how these incidents are perpetrated, lucky enough, some of them have been caught on video. If you look at how some of them have been perpetrated, some people, a group of 3 or 4 people in hoodies, some of them gun wielding, just show up and abduct people and take them away on unnumbered vehicles. That is an indication probably that could be state-driven. Some cases also are, cases of criminals perpetrating those kinds of offenses. But now, if you link these kinds of disappearances and what is happening in the globe, the Kenyan field, for example, just the other day, 2-3 months ago, we had what we call Generation Z protests, and some of them disappeared, and state had plans to quell these kinds of protests. So you can easily link that these are state-sponsored kinds of activities, and a few of them, all right, could be criminal activities, but the majority of it, and looking at how these sagas are culminating, how they are developing, and under what circumstances they are being committed, at what time, at what period of our country's history, then you can firmly say the state is perpetrating some of these instances to about 75%. And the most interesting thing is sometimes we don't even get these reports back. We get to learn this person has disappeared, and we never hear of them again. Some have completely disappeared to date. We have no idea where they've gone.
So like I said from before, I saw this documentary 2 years ago. Why do these continue to persist 2 years after, even disregarding constitutional protection?
You could adduce that and say that this is a political tactic adopted by different administrations, or it could be tactics that are adopted by certain persons in the administration. And if you assume that, if you take that trajectory, you'd be right by saying that, because it is happening. We've been promised during campaign trail that those kind of things are not going to happen ever again. But we see the numbers are still surging. We see these incidents still being counted. So you could say, statistically, and how these events happen, they are politically mitigated. They're politically instigated, not mitigated, instigated.
And let's talk about the recommendations and the Kenya Human Rights Commission calling out the government to do more investigations. I mean, if you cite Mazino's recordings of that documentary from 2 years ago, and also all of this has been happening with the protests that happened this year that broke out, the enforced disappearance, the arbitrary arrest, will their recommendations be heeded by the government this time? And is there going to be a change in situations that we've seen in Kenya?
I want to tell you that will be difficult. It will be difficult to assume, difficult to give indicators that this is going to stop. And why am I saying this? We've seen these incidents happen since independence. And you've seen this happen from administration to administration. And the difference is the numbers, but the tactics are still the same. So basically what we are saying, no matter how much recommendations that are given by all these stakeholders and all these players in the human rights sector or human rights fraternity, unless and until we have a political goodwill from the political leader and we change our kind of leaders, then we do not see. Those recommendations still keep passing, and keep passing. We have lots of reforms that we require in our nation for us to say that we are now on a trajectory that can purposely or can firmly place us on that platform where we are saying that, yes, we are on a trajectory where we can count enforced disappearances or death, something like that, to near zero. But that requires a lot of goodwill from the political class, because they are the ones who give orders on how this country is to be governed. They are the ones who make the laws how this country be governed. And sometimes they use what they make against what they have said. So that is still a dark and a green future for us and any other African country in that direction.
There's also been, of course, we're seeing images there of just, there was one that was shared, if the guys can be so kind to share that video again. There was a picture of a woman who's holding up, saying, "I am not a woman." I've forgotten the lettering on there. But this report also cites femicide in Kenya. And we've seen very popular cases of femicide that have, taken social media by storm. And it's asked very worrying and concerns about femicide in Kenya. Let's speak on that. Beyond Shakahola, there has been, a significant rise in femicide and gender-based violence. What systemic changes are needed to address this alarming trend? We see there is being a woman is not a crime. You see all the images there, very sad indeed. End femicide in Kenya today. What's a change that is needed for Kenya when it regards the safeguarding women?
It has been harrowing several years past when this violence against women grew in this country. And we have seen quite gruesome incidents, as you cannot imagine. Dismembered body parts, lots of reports that are actually beyond description. So what we can say here, we need frameworks that will govern the security and recognition that women have a right as much as men have a right, and we must use men and women themselves to work as a group to make sure that we are fighting violence against women from a tradition, from the elimination of traditional structures, where we look at patriarchism as a system of family set up in this country. And that vests some sort of powers to men that more or less exert a lot of masculinity towards the women they live with. So we need to walk away from that. We need to have frameworks. We need to have awareness. We need to get hold of the boy child and teach them right from growth that women desire to be respected. They have equal rights as us, and God gave these women to us to love them, not to harm them. And some of men are doing some things that are unimaginable, really unimaginable. And these are some of the things that we are seeing. Women now rising up and saying, enough is enough. We cannot have this. We need a change in structure. So there must be administrative frameworks. There must be follow-up from the law that all perpetrators who commit this kind of heinous offenses are arrested and they face the full arm of the law. And even outside of that, we must go fully fledged to the common citizen and educate them about femicide. And I'm so glad that there's so many organizations in my country right now and others from abroad, even Nigeria, running 16 days of activism in the Republic of Kenya. I'm proud to be one of participants in those. Just spreading this message to every individual that this is happening in our field. It must not happen. We must stop it from across all the angles. Even police must go out to prevent these kind of things from happening. And women themselves must wake up also and make sure that their voice is heard so loudly that, yes, we are going through this and this must never happen to us. This is not the kingdom designed for humanity in terms of existence.
Now, Chris, over 600 people still missing, over 400 bodies that have been exhumed. But 10% of those, we are told from the report that they are, well, just 10% have been identified. So the rest 90% haven't been identified, and they cited a lack of the ability to do so, access to DNA testing and all. But what's the government doing to expedite this identification process so families can have at least closure on their members who are either missing or dead?
It is still gruesome to say that we have people who are dead but not identified. It's quite disheartening, and really want to take my heart out to those families that have been affected. At the same time, look at it from this angle, that the president of this nation said that anybody who has a member of a family who has not been seen for some time to report and for that to be taken care of. And we've seen there could be some differences in terms of who is counting and who's giving these numbers. But from the onset, on the footnote, on the foundation, it is so bad to have unidentified persons who lost their lives in the Republic of Kenya, and we are unable to trace them or attach them to a particular family for claim. It's quite harrowing and not really, we can't figure out. I cannot figure out. I would probably say these are probably foreigners who would come to participate in these kinds of instances in the country, because I believe, because when you get to a certain age in this country, we take your biometrics and we attach that to an identity, which has a number that has your family tree in that. So to say that we cannot attach somebody to that is a bit difficult. We have the best laboratory in Africa in terms of forensic investigations. I do not know if we are making use of that, but it still remains that, yes, people are still unidentified, they are dead, they're being held in our mortuaries, and that does not reflect very well, and really leaves everybody quite confused. So our government must go fully flat out to find out exactly what could be happening, publish the pictures on national broadcasting platforms, and ask as much as is possible, if you can identify this person, if you know this person, please come forth. But also it could be that a lot of people are afraid to come forth and say, I know this person, because they could be tasked to help in identification. And because of the numbers that we're having from this discussion and what we've seen in print media, that could also be a hindrance. And we say we still run a risk of probably those bodies remaining identified for quite some time. And it would be gruesome to find those bodies just being disposed of without their family members taking them for decent burial.
So we have certain cases in West Africa here where people are missing voluntarily, perhaps because they've gone on certain pursuits for economic reasons. And I'm wondering whether there's that statistic inside of the numbers that we're hearing from Kenya. Is there such a case as well? Are people missing voluntarily?
Right.
Yes, they are. Some of us, like you said, like our fellow brothers and sisters in Nigeria who have gone out for economic reasons. A lot of us have also gone out for the same, and we've seen some numbers coming out for a lot of our countrymen who've lost their lives outside of the nations, outside of the nation. Some of us have urban-rural migration. They migrate from our urban areas to come to rural for economic gains, and then they don't end up really being identified in that form. So yes, as a country, we also have those numbers. It is a concern at national level. And I believe that our political class, our administrative class, and all those persons involved in making sure that we have a safe country that is proved from these kinds of crime are doing all they can. But like you said, yes, we too as Kenya have those numbers. And they are gruesome, they are grueling, and they are high, and they are growing.
Let's talk about legal framework, right? What's the law regarding situations like, arbitrary arrest, also law regarding enforced disappearance that is documented in the history in the report, about 74 cases of enforced disappearance. Are there legal frameworks that exist to tackle or to address issues like this?
Yes, the umbrella of legal framework for our nation is our constitution. And the Constitution of my Republic of Kenya provides for freedom of association and freedom of picketing. And we are seeing that this is what is being broken. This is the omission, and this is the commission where this provision of Bill of Rights in our Constitution is being surpassed or is being overplayed by some forces that are not understood by us and denying our citizens that right. And also when you go to court, we find that there is a clear definition of in what circumstance can a police officer or a law enforcement person use his firearm. That is clearly self-defense. But nevertheless, we're still seeing cases of extrajudicial killings. And I'm proud to say that some of those police officers who committed these heinous offenses have been have been arraigned in court, and judgment has been passed on them, and they've gone out to serve jail sentences or jail terms because of the offense that they committed. So yes, we have frameworks, both constitutional level, and that trickles down to application and how several arms of government and several the citizens of this country should exercise in protecting themselves, defending themselves, and how that must be followed in terms of exercising that right that we have.
And in a broader sense, when we take out, just the legal framework, do the people of Kenya, the Kenyans, are they aware of this, of this legal framework? Are they aware of their rights, or, is there more that needs to be done in terms of educating and sensitizing the masses to understand what their rights are?
The need to create public awareness and create more and more public awareness is a never-ending demand or a never-ending need because of the dynamic situations that we have in our country. Yes, majority of my fellow Kenyan citizens need to know exactly how they can exercise that right or what are their rights under the Constitution. And we have several government institutions that go out to educate our fellow citizens. We have public participation forums where citizens are educated. But then you come and find that there are hindrances that also stop them from enjoying those rights or from exercising what is due to them as a right. So as much as we have the creation of public awareness, we also have hindrances. And we find that hindrances are much more heavier for them to take advantage of and be able to use or consume what is there for them to use as a bona fide Kenyan citizens.
I do hope that, as we're talking about sensitization and change, I hope that the larger African body, as well as other NGOs and CSOs, are taking a look at this, and they intend to do more, especially when it comes to femicide. I mean, the stories are harrowing, the cases are unimaginable, and just we can't even say the intricacies of those cases live on television, because of, Watershed Hour and the rest. So just imagine how, severe this are. And only God knows how many cases are underreported that have slipped through the cracks that we do not know about and may not even come to light until years after. And that's just how wild the situation is. But Chris, we want to say many thanks for doing justice to this conversation today, and also to just heeding our call and coming on every single time we call. We appreciate you. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Chris.
I appreciate you too. I appreciate the work you're doing. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Chris Otieno there, just giving us more insight on the report from the Kenya's Human Rights Commission about the cases of, giving a report on the number of reported cases of violence, femicide, undocumented arrests, arbitrary disappearance, and arrests, and so much more. It's a stark reminder of the need for vigilance, accountability and action for Nigeria.
Even here in
Africa,
Nigeria.
yeah.
For Africa, even here in Nigeria. Funny story, I had one of these cases where I used to work. A young chap was an intern. After he's left, suddenly disappears, and then we get calls. Well, it's very interesting that he was the one who made these calls, however. Now, when he made these calls, he said that he had been kidnapped and told that he was expected to bring a certain amount of money. Got everybody, in a knot. Everybody was panicked and everything. But then again, some of us actually critiqued it, like, hang on a second. We don't want to make this sound work, but you're the one making the calls consistently. You get where I'm going.
Yeah.
People take advantage of the situation.
Yeah.
In the end, we discovered that it was all a lie, that he had actually abducted himself and was using that as a means to try and get money for survival.
There's always going to be one outlier.
There's always,
there? Just
exactly.
One
So there are these. I'm not watering down the case in Kenya, but I'm saying in Nigeria we see that this has gone from being a security concern
to a money-making scheme.
To a scheme, exactly.
And honestly, it's now removes the resources that should be channeled into,
it's a crying wolf.
Because you're crying wolf. You know what I mean? The boy who cried wolf is now, instead of us to be worried about the actual person who's in need, we're now channeling all of our concern to the boy who cried wolf. And also that's a call to everyone, as much as we're in dire situations, the rising cost of living, situations are dire, do not in any circumstances think that you're going to take advantage of the situation and make money off of it. And that criminal mindedness, it takes some level of diabolism in you to be able.
Guts.
You are a diabolical person. That's just.
You're addressing this person I told you of
Why-
personally, like it hurts you
You went to
personally.
walk.
I know it's
Because everyone is earning a salary. They don't own the job. They don't own the business. Why would you do that?
Not to compare the
Right.
Kenyan situation and that documentary I spoke about from earlier. You should see it. In fact, maybe I'll copy the link out. It's a BBC documentary actually, and it follows. You might have seen it.
Seen it.
Good.
Seen it.
It follows very critically the members that were highlighted as hot members of the Kenyan police and how they activate, how they carry on their activities.
Right.
And it was very reminiscent
Of some cases.
of some cases here in Nigeria. But I will tell you for a fact, they hold there's no restrictions when it comes to the Kenyan instance. It's quite harrowing and interesting.
I mean, we've shared stories here of when, I had a very personal experience, and I'm not going to share it for the sake of it's not my story to share. But if there's one thing that was certain was that being out that night and trying to resolve the situation and being able to do that, I realized that I am privileged. I'm not privileged, but I am lucky and blessed. I guess that's the word. I could resolve that issue with just one phone call, and I could resolve that issue with just one text.
But then there are other people.
But there are people who are there who cannot solve that issue, and if they don't have anybody, they will be there for a long time until when they are ready to be like, okay, we're going to let you go. Or better yet, if there's a crime that's happened and they need it resolved because the press is on the case, they are going to pick anybody there who has nobody to vouch for them or to get them out and be like, yeah, that's you.
That's it.
Falsely accused. And that's it. Down the pipeline. Gone.
That was Africa Focus, or rather Focus Africa for you there here on Breakfast Extra. We've still got more coming your way. I'm excited about the strips. I don't know if you are, because we had some very interesting ones this week. I'm hoping that we get to them in time, and then we can share with you. Do stay tuned. It's still Breakfast Extra. It's Mazino Thiel, and Juditha TV will be back.